Here it comes! Here comes the raid train! La! So much is happening! So much is happening! Hello, 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 choo choo! Lana, hello everybody! Hello! Hi! My thing didn't happen and I don't know why. I think it's because I opened this up. Hold on, let me get you the proper raid. Oh, I turned it off because we're in silent mode. Not yet. All right, here we go. I think it's gonna happen. This is what's supposed to happen. Da-dum, ba-da-da-da-da. 600. Holy cow. Look at all these follows. Hello, everybody. Oh my god, there's so much happening at once. Hello, hello, hello. Hello, Raiders. Shoop, thank you so much for the raid. Ari as well. Welcome in. I'm Affector of Change. Y'all can call me AOC. I am a queasy queer RPG streamer here on the platform Le Twitch. Hi, King Mog. We'll turn off sounds in a minute. I guess we'll let the chaos happen to get us started, get us pumped up. King Mog. Da 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 da. Good King Mog, oh my good King Mog. AOC be looking different? What's different about me? So we were just doing some charity stuff for the NCA. So we are going to continue to take, that does trigger every time you come in. Hi Plunge, welcome in. We are going to continue to take donations during the stream, during today's event for the NCA. We are raising money with the Treppies for the National Children's Alliance. They are a fabulous organization. They do a heckin' lot. About 89 cents out of every dollar goes to crisis centers for kiddos going through some trauma. They do a lot of great work. So there are some incentives. We're not going to be doing tricks or treats during the raid train, but I will pick those back up at another time. Here they are. Every dollar that gets donated is going to be some spooky timing that we do on the channel. Every $25 play tricks or treats, and if we get up to $100, we will carve a pumpkin, and it'll be an interactive game. But Shoop, I hope you had a wonderful, wonderful heckin' amazing stream. I'm having a hard time catching up with all of these beautiful messages. There's so much going on. There are 106 friends. Hello, everybody. So today's agenda, if I can get my scenes to work properly, I need to get moved over here. What do I need to make go away? Hold on. Let's make this... That's not the button I wanted. Is that the button I wanted? I got this. I'm a streamer. I've done this before, right? I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing. I'm just a little nervous, guys. I'm not gonna lie. It's a lot of people in the room at once. All right. I need to make spooky gaming go away because we are doing our conversation and I need to change my category. We got a donation. Holy heck.
Time for some stretch goals. Less than
1,200 minutes? What? Holy heck. That is amazing. Time to fart for mental health. That's right, Era. That's right. Let's update my channel. Yes, raid train, raid train. I'm gonna pin this disclaimer for y'all. So yes, I am a gamer and a licensed mental health professional. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. But I do want to clarify that Twitch is not a place where we're going to get substitutes for actual medical care. I do like to give some, some advice here and there as needed that's generalized, but in terms of like, being your therapist on Twitch, that's not going to happen. But thank you so much for that donation. What the heck? That is incredible. I do have some stretch goals actually, which is funny. So give me a second and I will update my Twirtify campaign and get that set up for you. Wow. Treppies are going hard this weekend. A lot of us are raising money. Let me slide over here. So here is kind of my agenda for the day, what I'm hoping for us to achieve. And if we get it all done, we get it all done. If we don't, we don't. How do I change this? I'm live updating my campaign. Campaign. Let's go 500. Sure. Save. Does that change it? There we go. I added some things. I haven't turned sounds off either. Chaos. Chaos. A dad joke. To get us started, absolutely. I will do a dad joke. And I gotta get our raid switched over. Here's your dad joke. Why was the snowman so cheap? Because he wanted everything for free. Thank you, thank you, thank you for the dad joke. Appreciate that, appreciate that. Let's get some music, shall we? But yeah, so here's today's agenda. We're going to have a conversation for this hour about oppression as trauma. We're going to define trauma a little bit. We're going to have some talks about intersectional privilege, what are the tenets of allyship, and talk a little bit about what recovery looks like. And then in the second hour, I've got some friends coming on the channel, Cthulhu, Oracle 23, Easily 18, and Lana. We're going to talk about Final Fantasy 16. So there'll be a little bit of spoilers for the game, but only in the first third before the time skip. So it's not too far in the game, but we're going to show some footage of the game and we're going to have a conversation about that. So we can talk about some representation, tropes, and appropriation in Japanese games. So I will let you know ahead of time before we get to that point, but that is coming up. It's really hard to keep track of chat, so I'm going to do slow mode. Vector, didn't I recruit you to help me make PowerPoints? I really read a thesis aloud. Why would the pirate kids see the movie? Because it was rated R. Yes, yes. I think I actually have a PowerPoint stream thing. I think this is the one. I was setting this up earlier, so I'm trying to remember where I put all my buttons because I moved everything around. There she is. There she is. There's our talk. Haha! I did the thing. So that's what we're going to talk about. Holy heck. Thank you for the donation. That is a lot of minutes. Era, you silly person. I appreciate that. I appreciate that so much. Yeah, Shoop, I unfortunately didn't get a chance to watch the whole thing. I hope that your VOD is published. If not, because of personal reasons, totally get that too. But I really want to watch your segment. And if you need to go take care of yourself, get some snacks, get some naps, please go do that. I will have the VOD published if you want to watch it later. I want you to take care of you first. Really appreciate you. All right, did we get a big shout out for Shoop, by the way? I don't know if we did, but if we didn't, I'll give you another one. There we go. Oh, it must have gone off pretty recently. Okay, maybe we did give one. You did? Thank you, Emmy. I'll appreciate you. W mod right there, Emmy and Drew. So let's talk about the impacts of oppression, trauma, and the path towards healing. So this is the mental health awareness raid train. Why are we talking about oppression? That's a great question. I just asked myself. Hi, Sparky Petunia. Thank you so much, AOC and everybody. Absolutely. Thank you for the hugs. I think that mental health is not often intersectional. I think when we think about mental health, we think about it in one little silo where we have a conversation, but everything in life I think is related, and I think it's good to talk about. So the first slide here is a quote from Asada Shakur. People get used to anything. The less you think about your oppression, the more your tolerance for it grows. After a while, people just think oppression is the normal state of things. But to become free, you have to acutely be aware of being a slave. So Asada Shakur, she's an American political activist, and she was a member of the Black Liberation Army during the Civil Rights Movement. She is currently living in Cuba in exile for the work that she did to try and get things going. here in the United States to fight for rights. Amazing human, amazing story. I think there's a documentary out there about her life that's pretty interesting. Highly recommend checking that out if you ever get a chance to. But why I wanted to start this conversation here to talk about how have rights been in this country? This is more specific in the United States than it is globally. But it's really amazing how much oppression is really at a core to our country's history and our culture and how we treat each other. Sheep says, I'm running off like 2 hours of sleep. I'm going to nap out and lurk. Keep it up, dude. Can't wait to see the panel later when I'm VOD watching. Absolutely, Sheep. Get your rest. Appreciate ya. So, oppression. What is it? Oppression is the systematic, institutionalized, pervasive, and routine mistreatment of and discrimination against individuals because of their membership in groups identified by gender, race, religion, faith, socioeconomic status, sexual orientation, ability, neurodiversity, body size, language, tribal affiliation, and other differences. An important point. These are all groups that are on the downside of power. So I think that a lot of the conversations that we've been having, that I've been part of for this raid train, a lot of them have been discussions about what it is like to experience this as a human being that experiences mental health challenges, whatever those symptoms might be. In a lot of ways, oppression and mental health go hand in hand. They're very, very similar. They're very, very similar. I'm going to turn my thing on. There we go, so you can see my stuff. I do like this definition, and especially that point about groups on the downside of power, because I think a lot of oppression, we don't quite understand how that works. It's a top-down system, right? The people who have the power, it goes down, and it's systematic. So, the trauma of oppression, right? What that means, and this comes from my colleague Roshni Chabra. She is at that link right there if you want to check out her content. You also, by the way, if you want a copy of these slides, there are some on my Google Drive, if I can find my button for it, for my Let's Talk. There's a link right there if you want to go check that out. I think that's it. Yeah. Perfect. So it's a psychological injury, right? It's physical, psychological, and emotional pain that results from experiencing or witnessing oppression, discrimination, or violence against marginalized groups. These are the ongoing collective injuries from structural oppressions, things like aggression, additional labor, exhaustion, experiencing and re-experiencing, right? That chronic stress, that hypervigilance, right? Made to feel unsafe, made to feel vulnerable, targeted simply for existing, right? If you're a person who is neurodivergent, if you're a person who's in the queer spectrum, if you're a person who experiences mental health symptoms, this is the experiences likely that you may have noticed in your life. And I think it's really important that we talk about that, because a lot of times when we think about our experiences, it gets minimized, right? Hi, JJ. Welcome in. Can you make sure he publishes this VOD? I gotta get into class. Affector makes some bomb presentations, discussions. Don't want to miss out. Yes, I will make sure to publish the VOD queue. Don't you worry. But yes, my colleague, I think, made some interesting points. And another important element of that is to recognize that it's not traumatizing to be Black. It is not traumatizing to have a mental illness. It is not traumatizing to be queer. It's traumatizing to experience oppression. And I think that's an important point that Roshni made when I saw her presentation at the EMDRIA conference this year. The slide is borrowed from her. Thank you for the follow. I appreciate you. He's on it. Hope class goes well. Yeah, Q, I hope you have a good class. Thanks for dropping in. Appreciate you, buddy. Thank you for the follows. So let's clue in a little bit, and let's talk about slavery in the United States. And we're going to talk about a little bit of history of mental health treatment as well. So thinking about slavery, this data timeline comes from the Jim Crow Museum. The link is right there if you want to go check them out and see some of the research and the data that they have. So slavery, as it started in the United States, is dated back to 1619. So before we were even a country, before we were even a nation, 1619 is the date that 20 and odd Africans, probably seized from a Portuguese ship, were carried to Jamestown, Virginia, and traded for provisions, right? Literally traded for goods. And at that time, they were classified as indentured servants. And so from that point forward, this is where slavery began, right? It became that we were trading human lives as commodities. Chattel slavery is a unique American invention where human beings became traded as if they were property. By 1640, Virginia started to really codify into their laws punishments for people who were enslaved. In 1641, Massachusetts became the first colony to legalize recognized slavery. 1662, again, became more and more codified inside Virginia's laws up until 1705. 1676, Beacon's Rebellion in Virginia included poor white and black people fighting together, with the government's response hastening the transition to black slavery. In the 1700s, right, that law in Virginia got passed. There was a slave revolt in New York City. 9 white men died. That continued to ramp up restrictions that people who were enslaved experienced. In 1770, we've got the event of the Crispus attacks. There was an ex-slave who was an early casualty of the American Revolution, shot and killed in what became known as the Boston Massacre. Although Attucks is credited as the leader of the event, debate raged over the hero as to whether he was a patriot or a villain, simply because of the color of his skin. 1775. George Washington revised an edict ordering the recruitment of officers to accept free black people into the American Army. More than 5,000 black people, mostly Northerners, fought against the British. So right here in the core of our American history, right, in 1775, black people have been part of what's created our nation as it is. They are part of our history. Yet, we look at our textbooks, we go to high school, and we see all these little silly, frilly white people in their, coated rugs or coated wigs. It's really important to kind of go back and recognize that the history we learned is not always the right history. It's not accurate. I will also throw in there, it's not on this slide, but during the Revolutionary War, there was also something known as the Sullivan-Clinton campaign. The Sullivan-Clinton campaign basically was the Revolutionary Army didn't have really money. They didn't really have ways that they could pay people to serve in the military and the militia. So 2 generals, Sullivan and Clinton, they did a campaign during the Revolutionary War where they came into upstate New York, and they went to the Haudenosaunee villages where the indigenous people, the Native American people, were living, and chased them, murdering them, burning down their homes, kicking them across the border into Canada. And then all of the land that remained that they stole from the indigenous peoples in upstate New York is what they divided up and became the counties that we have today here in my home state. Because that's how they were going to fund the war. They needed to give them land, and they did it by murdering and genociding the indigenous peoples who lived here. So that's another fun fact about American history that I think is needing to be known. Oppression's just part of our backbone. It's just part of our backbone. 1793, Congress passed the first Fugitive Slave Act, making it a crime to harbor an escaped slave. 1800, Gabriel Prosser, Jack Bowler, and others planned a slave rebellion. As many as 1,000 were prepared, but a thunderstorm caused some problems. 1808, laws banning the African slave trade went into effect in the United States and all British colonies. So by 1808, the whole world was just thinking like, maybe this slavery thing's not great, right? In 1820, we have the Missouri Compromise, right? So Missouri got brought into the states as a slave state, and then they kind of started trying to figure out like how can we keep slavery going, which is awful. Simply for economic means. 1850, the Compromise. Why are we always having these compromises? It's so awful, American history. Compromise in 1850 brought California as a free state, banning the public sales of public slaves. That's why it's important to know your history. Facts, Lana. Facts. Reading American history book is about American written by... Yes, Cthulhu. It's very biased when we read our textbooks. 1850, right? They had another compromise. So they banned the public sale of slaves in DC, but then they opened up the rest of the land seized from Mexico to settlement by slave owners. Commitment of the United States government to enforcement of the new slave fugitive law. So as our country continued to develop in its early days, and this great debate about slavery was brewing, you know, Congress continued to figure out, how do we get away with this? How do we figure this out? By figuring out these problems. These are states wanting to add the benefits of slavery. Yes. Yeah. Because it made money, right? It made money. A lot of the wealth that is concentrated and hoarded in the United States today, it's this. This is what created that wealth. It's through the lives of these poor humans. So last slide here on the timeline for slavery. 1852, Uncle Tom's Cabin was an anti-slavery model, got published, 300,000 copies were shown. They started doing some dramatizations of the plots, but one of the challenges that happened is not only were they trying to like spread this message, right? You also started seeing the early crop-ups of blackface, right? The idea of the traveling jesters. A lot of that really started to spread in the early times of our nation's history and contributed to some really harmful stereotypes about black folks. And this is by definition appropriation, right? Where you have white people dressing up in blackface pretending to be black characters. Yeah, that's what appropriation is, and it's damaging and it's harmful. The fact that they were comfortable and confident there were benefits to slavery in 2023. Yes. Are you talking about Florida, I believe? Yeah. And stock. Human stock. It's disgusting, Lana. Absolutely disgusting. 1857, Dred Scott versus Sanford. United States ruled that black folks were not citizens. Denied Congress the ability to prohibit slavery in any federal territory. That was an awful landmark decision at that time. 1863, we had the Emancipation Proclamation, which I remember learning in school was like, slavery's over, it's fine, right? No, that was not what he did. Lincoln passed that law. This is my opinion. I'm not a historical expert, but this is my opinion. Lincoln passed that law because this is the only way. Oh, we've got an ad. Okay. All right. I'll look pretty for a couple minutes. I'll just look pretty and I'll be angry about it. Sorry, President Lincoln. I'm angry. Ads, no. The good thing though is once the ads go, we'll have an hour without any more ads, hopefully. I'll hold. I've got some more names to put on my t-shirt too. No. Ad break ends in 1 minute. 60 seconds. Ads are done for you. And you didn't even really want to for a long time. Yeah. Facts, Lana. Facts. So the only reason President Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation, which took several years to make it across the Union, hence why Juneteenth is celebrated, right? Because it took so long for it to reach Texas. But the Emancipation Proclamation was simply to weaken the economic power of the southern states that were rebelling. It was not for humanitarian reasons. It was not because he was doing the right thing. It was simply because this is a strategy of war, to weaken your enemy so that you can conquer them. Human lives just played around like a game. And then by 1865... we have the 13th Amendment to the United States Constitution that was ratified. This is after the Civil War. Technically, This outlawed slavery. However, if you do any research about the 13th, you'll be aware that they didn't end slavery. It changed it. Slavery is still legal when you're incarcerated. There are a lot of great scholars and books out there about the 13th Amendment. You're back? Okay, I was angry, Cthulhu. We were talking about Abraham Lincoln. But the 13th, there's a lot of good books out there, a lot of good research out there about the 13th. It didn't end slavery. In fact, the 13th Amendment is what really codified our modern day incarceration system of black and brown men specifically, that keeps them in there, because slavery is legal if you're incarcerated by law, by the 13th Amendment. The Twitch gods like me, I guess, and even though I'm not turbo, I don't get ads. You're so lucky. So what I want to draw as a point here, that was just a little bit of the history. There's a lot more that goes into it. But what I want to point out is, look at this timeline. He wanted the vote. Facts, Cthulhu. Facts. Look at this timeline. So if slavery started in 1619, okay, and ended by the 13th Amendment, technically, by 1865, that's 246 years in the United States, even as a former colony, that slavery was a part of our lifeblood, that was a part of our economic system. It was a part of how we ran things, right? We've only had 158 years up to today where we haven't had slavery as a legal institution body. And so if you do the math, that's 60% of our American history was under the awfulness that is slavery. 60%. And that doesn't even count the Jim Crow era that happened right after the Civil War and all of the current stuff that happens today, right? Clearly, this is not something that's over. There's so many attitudes. There's so much hate that's still happening in our country. I saw another fact. It said that only 5 generations of descendants from slaves have been born free. That's not a long tree. That's not a long tree to trace back. A lot of families have a hard time tracing their roots back. So I think this is just important context for our panel to just everyone kind of have this baseline of understanding of where this comes from. But another point that I want us to get into is to have a little bit of a conversation about intersectionality. So when I was in undergrad, this is something I started to learn a lot about. Jadu says, honestly, the farthest I can trace back is New Orleans. It's awful. Civil rights didn't even start until the 60s. I know, Lana. I know. Oh, intersectionality. The idea is that all of these different systems intersect: race, ethnicity, religion, mental health, age, education, body size. Lana says, my grandmother was a sharecropper and her mother was a slave. It's not many generations back. It's not that many generations back. No. It's different to be, let's say, a white gay man who comes from a lot of money, and to be a black gay man, perhaps who lives in poverty. Very different world experiences, right? All of these systems that are around interact and intersect and create unique dynamic effects. And so I think that's an important thing to remember as we're thinking about this week's Mental Illness Awareness Raid Train. We're talking about bipolar disorder, borderline personality disorder, PTSD, insert category of symptom or diagnosis here. And these are individuals who also fit somewhere in this matrix of power or privilege, right? And that's going to have added effects on their symptomology, on how that impacts their mental health, on the trauma that that's going to create in their lives that they're going to have to work and recover through. And so I think that's something that's important to recognize and think about, is that we are many things. We are many things. I do like this graphic as well. Shout out again to Roshni. This was in her presentation. This wheel of power and privilege is really interesting. So in the center of the wheel, in these categories, you've got things that are people, think of that downside of power concept, right? You've got, let's say, formal education. You know, someone who has a post-secondary education. Myself, I have a master's degree. That would be me. That would be the most privileged. Somebody who was able to complete high school is kind of in the middle here. And someone who never was able to complete high school would be considered in the marginalized category, right? Somebody with elementary education. You can look at skin color. You can look at your mental health. You can look at your housing, right? All of these factors of power and privilege are really important to recognize how they intersect and cause some unique challenges. Cthulhu says, my great-grandmother refuses to talk about it with me, but I was told a few stories. Yeah. And your favorite word, intersectionality. I love it. Emmy says, I can trace back to the 1300s. On my dad's side of the family was a bunch of shitty-ass slave owners. Yeah, it goes back there. It goes back there. Side note, one of my favorite content creators that comes up on my TikTok page is she'll like pull up history and she'll be like, hey, look, it's Gwyneth Paltrow. Do you know where Gwyneth Paltrow's wealth comes from? And she traces back the lineage and has a story. I'm like, oh no. Oh, it's awful. It's awful. Crow says, I'm still here, tearing up my room looking for an earbud that I lost in the middle of the night. I hope you find it. I hope you find it. So yeah, if you get a chance on your own and you want to take a look at these slides, again, here is the talk as a PDF if you want to download it. I think it would be helpful for you to really think for your own sake where you fit in this matrix of power and privilege, because the more marginalized you are, the more traumatized you are. Guaranteed. Guaranteed. And you have every right to the symptoms that you experience. And you deserve to heal just like every other human being. But I don't know. I think it's important to remember that that intersection is where we're at. I've torn up my bed. It's under. This mission shouldn't be this hard. I hope you find it, Crow. Hey, Belle. Welcome on in. Welcome on in. So let's transition a little bit. We talked about a little bit of the slavery history, right? Let's talk about the history of institutionalization in our country. So John Kennedy Toole, he was a writer, and he has this quote, jail was preferable. There they only limited you physically. In a mental ward, they tampered with your soul, worldview, and mind. So he is an individual who experienced some pretty detrimental symptoms of depression and had experienced institutionalization in the 19th century and died by suicide himself. And this is just a quote of him talking about that experience of what it must have been like, that he would rather have been in jail than have been put in an asylum in his time. Because of how terrible those experiences were, he also experienced symptoms of paranoia, and he died at age 31 by suicide. So here's a little bit of a timeline by decade about mental health treatment. So in the 1860s, we were still in the throes of our racist ways. People with mental health challenges were basically incarcerated, right? They didn't have clothes. They didn't have light. They didn't have heating. They didn't have bathrooms. They weren't chained. They were chained to walls, right? Some diagnoses at the time that had come out, drapetomania, dysphagia ethiopica. These were diagnoses that were used to try to explain enslaved people's escaping or the resistance to do hard work, right? So these medical professionals were institutionally using their lingo as justification for mistreatment, right? You clearly don't want to work because you've got a mental disorder. So we're going to lock you up in one of those terrible, awful asylums. So it was a way to incarcerate people, right? To come up with an excuse to throw them in jail. It makes me think of like Beauty and the Beast. Do you remember Beauty and the Beast, where they try to say that her dad is a loony and they try to throw him in the back of the van? It's like that. That's how life was. I feel that. Belle says, I had more freedom in prison. I commend you for your experience, and I hear that. Yeah, treatment in some of these facilities isn't great. You found it. Oh, good. I'm glad you found it, Crow. By 1880, state hospitals started popping up. The expectation now started to become that we will treat people. They were overcrowded. It was more custodial care, a little bit better than it was, but not great. In 1896, Connecticut banned people with epilepsy and those deemed as imbeciles and feeble-minded from being married, right? So Connecticut in 1896 is starting eugenics, right? Oh, if we just breed out the mental health problems, then it will be fine, right? So that right there is oppression, right? That is that definition of oppression, that experience. I think MI, is that Michigan or Minnesota? I can't remember what state that is. They were doing some sterilization efforts. More than 65,000 people in this time period were sterilized because they had some diagnostic category like epilepsy or depression. Is it Michigan? Okay, I couldn't remember what state it was. In 1930, treatment options started to expand, but are often painful with little results. So this is where electroconvulsive therapy started to become popular as a trend, lobotomies. And what's even worse about that, thinking about intersectionality, Black patients were the ones they experimented on with. Black folks were the ones that they were carving into their brains with these instruments to see what happens. White people too, but Black people specifically were being used at this time. And in fact, during these times, it's also said that the hospitals were segregated, right? So you had an asylum for white people, asylum for Black people, and the asylum for Black people, right? They literally turned them into slaves. They put them to work. They had them doing the laundry, the kitchen, the fields, right? It was just a way to reinvigorate the wheel, even though it was illegal, to legalize that mistreatment. I'm looking at the clock and I'm needing to breeze faster through this presentation, guys. So, moving into more of the modern era, right? So we started to shift away from institutions and we started to invest money into community care. This correlates with the civil rights movement. A bunch of laws started to come out recognizing things were bad. And I think a major shift for inpatient treatment was in 1980 when clozapine was approved by the FDA for treatment of schizophrenia. First major advancement in 30 years for that particular diagnosis, and that's where you started to see the shift. However, my opinion is that even though that was the goal, is like you saw these institutions, they were awful, people were mistreated, let's get them in the community, right? Let's get them out of there and get them the treatment they need. Unfortunately, the public mental health system has been defunded year after year after year. There's not money to back it up. We say the things, but we don't put our money where our mouth is. This stuff isn't talked about. There was the Americans with Disabilities Act that came out in the 90s, which was great. The Mental Health Parity Act expanded healthcare for mental health. A lot of things happened. There was the Affordable Care Act that really expanded. Most recently in 2020, 988 became that universal number in the US for suicide prevention. So if you're ever in a need of a crisis hotline anywhere in the United States, 988, just dial it and you'll get there. So the DSM is the big purple book that the diagnoses live in. There are 5 editions of this book. The first one came out in 1952. Homosexuality was a sociopathic personality disturbance in that diagnosis. You can have entire seminars for this information. There's a lot of historical context we don't talk. I know. And I think it's important that we look at this stuff in moving towards our conversation about appropriation, just thinking about this history. So by 1968, we started to change some things. Things started to really come from Freudian lines of thinking. By 1980, we have more of our current style of the DSM. In the 90s, there was the DSM-4. They started to list what are called culture-bound syndromes. So it was an attempt at being intersectional, but still stereotyping, basically saying only people from this culture have this diagnosis. Not great, but an attempt. The APA and I have feelings with each other. By 2013, this is the current edition of the DSM. things that were changed. Autism spectrum became a thing. Asperger's was deleted and it became autism spectrum disorder. Substance use disorders became a spectrum. And the 5 really tried to attempt cross-cultural variations. And I believe the text revision, which I haven't had a chance to see yet, that just came out this year or last year, has a lot of that throughout the text that are adding as well the prolonged grief disorder, which we've been needing a diagnosis like that for a long time. So, defining trauma. Trauma is a pervasive problem. It results from exposure to an incident or series of events that are emotionally disturbing or life-threatening with lasting adverse effects with the individual's functioning, mental, physical, social, emotional, or spiritual well-being. Basically, shit goes down that you don't have the capacity to work through, right? You don't have the resources within you or around you to manage, right? That's trauma. That's what it is. And I think it's important to recognize that big T's and small t's are just as important in each other. So this is language that comes from Francine Shapiro. She created EMDR therapy in the late 80s, early 90s. And in her textbook, she talks about this. So the big T traumas are the ones we think about with PTSD, right? A death, an assault, experiencing, all those kinds of things, the things that are in the diagnostic criteria for PTSD, actual or threatened death. We're witnessing it. But small t traumas, right? These are those things that happen in our life, right? Things, especially in childhood, right? Where we get left out, where we see ourselves as different, right? Anyone who experiences difference, i.e. anyone who experiences mental health symptoms, that's a small t trauma. There's no doubt about it. Because your brain is different and the people around you treat you differently, you have experienced trauma, which may or may not shape how you see yourself, others, and the world around you. By definition, oppression, right? These things that we're talking about, based on whatever you fit in that matrix of intersections, right? Those things make you more vulnerable to the small t traumas, and it feels like the past is present. Okay. I could talk lots and lots about trauma, but for the sake of getting through the presentation, I'm going to move ahead. So this is your brain. Say hello. Hi, brain. Hi, brain. Hello. The material of your brain that's about right here, this is called the prefrontal cortex. So this is the part of your brain that's really responsible for thinking, for setting goals. Hi, brain. For, being able to make a plan, look at the big picture, right? Evaluate things. That part of the brain is the last to finish its development and doesn't finish developing until about age 26. Think about that. So all those silly choices, those cringy things we did as teens, is because our brain's not fully formed yet. We made choices based on lower functions of the brain because it's just not quite there. The limbic system, that's more the core of the brain. That's the centerpiece of the brain. The limbic system is where the emotions are living, our reactions to things. When I look out into the world and I see danger, the part of my brain that perceives that and reacts to it, that's the core of the brain. So if we look at our brain like our hand, right? Here's the prefrontal. The limbic system's right in here. It's a core piece of that brain. That's where the amygdala is. There's a bunch of other structures, but basically that's where it is. And so those two pieces are what we need to be able to effectively manage. A fun fact, there's a barrier between the areas of the brain called the prefrontal cortex. And people, especially children who are experiencing abuse and neglect, the tissue of that corpus callosum is thin. If you look at the brain scans compared to kids who haven't had those experiences, basically meaning in order to survive a harmful, hurtful environment, the limbic system gets overactivated, right? Because they need it to survive, to get through the experience. And so as a result, it's harder for them to get access to this when their brain perceives danger. The past feels like it's present. And I would imagine, I haven't seen studies that back this up, but I imagine anyone who experiences of oppression, likely if we look at your brain, you might see a difference on that particular structure. So polyvagal theory is Stephen Porges's little masterpiece. He started writing about this in '94. So it's kind of where the mind and the body meet. He has this idea about how we can think about those pieces. So let's meet your vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve is the second largest one in the body. The first biggest one is the sciatica. But the vagus nerve is quite big. And it starts here at your inner ear. And it moves on to where your face and your eye are and your facial muscles, all the way down into your throat, moves into your heart and your lungs, and then terminates somewhere in your abdomen, right? So if I were to ask you the question, I want you to think about a moment where you felt joy, where you felt just relaxed and peaceful and excited. And let's say for me, it's like, sitting at a waterfall, watching the leaves fall, and it's really pretty and I love it, right? And I think about, okay, where am I feeling that joy? I bet you it's not my kneecap. I bet you any feeling that I have typically is going to resonate somewhere along the vagus nerve, right? And so part of recovery, right, from these experiences is learning how to interact with our body, right? How do we interact with our vagus nerve to help us return to that sense of calm? So there are 3 circuits that the vagus nerve has on at all times. There's the ventral, the sympathetic, and the dorsal. So our sympathetic system, right, that's the system of activation, right? When I sense there's danger, when I'm like scared and I'm feeling restless and panicky, right? That's some people call it the fight-flight reaction, right? That's the sympathetic system. The ventral system is our sense of safety, when we feel connected, when we're with other people. If you've ever been to stand-up comedy, right? And you're sitting in an audience and everybody's giggling and they're laughing and you can feel it. It's humming inside your body as you laugh along with them. That's your ventral system taking over, getting activated. And then the dorsal system, this is that feeling of shutdown, collapse, depression, hopelessness, right? When my brain and body are just like, there's nothing I can do. That's the dorsal system. So somebody who's really in the throes of a deep depressive episode, that's likely their dorsal system activating. So part of training our nervous system, right? Part of regulating that nervous system is we've got to learn how to increase and decrease our heart rate, right? We need to get that sympathetic arousal and get that ventral calming activated. And there's lots of ways that we can do that. I don't know if this slide is useful. This is more stuff. Training your dragon. This comes from Case & Co. She's an EMDR therapist who's trained in polyvagal theory. That's what she calls it. She calls your nervous system your dragon. She gave a cute example. But the basic idea is that we need to be able to regulate our nervous systems by breathing, by exercise, by thinking about the things that calm us down, right? When you come to Twitch as a viewer or as a streamer, right? And you together are interacting with each other and you're talking about a silly joke or you're making comments about daddies, as happens often on my channel, right? That's you working to train your dragon, right? You're trying to give yourself what you need to let your ventral system light up to help you calm down. Hi, Plunge. Daddies. We love our daddies. The daddy command probably is not going to work for this segment, unfortunately. So I don't have time. I was going to have us do a breathing exercise together. It is a redeem that I do called Having a Mindful Moment. But for time's sake, I'm going to skip it. And instead, I'm going to move on to this next slide. I want to talk about being an ally, right? Being an ally is not a noun. Being an ally is a verb. It is something that you do. You know, improving diversity, equity, inclusion, and bias in a meaningful way is very uncomfortable, right? When we try to have those conversations about making things better, of course you're going to feel uncomfortable. Your sympathetic ventral system, right? It's going to go. Like you said, you had friends coming by. They are here, Crow. They are all here. The cheering is here. I think you might have missed the raid train while you had popped out. I think they're just kind of observant and pondering all these thoughts. So treat that discomfort, right? When you're trying to deal with issues of race or poverty or gender, or sexuality, and you're feeling uncomfortable because you're not sure you're getting it right, don't just use that as a reason to avoid it, right? Don't avoid the conversation. Use that as asking yourself, what is this emotion trying to tell me? What is that emotion of discomfort saying about this situation that I need to work on, right? Being an ally is a verb. And I assure that in our talk later this afternoon, we'll get into this a little bit more in detail, and we'll have some ideas together as a group of what we can promote, ask you guys to think about. But being an ally is a verb. It's not something you do. Like, I'm an ally, right? No, I do allyship. I do things like have this conversation today about that intersectionality of oppression and trauma and mental health, right? This is an action I'm trying to do to be an ally, because as you saw in that wheel, I don't fit a lot of those categories of marginalization. I'm a little white dude. But it doesn't mean I can't be an ally, and I can't use what I can with my own thinking to have a conversation about this and bring to light this talk. So yeah, if you want those slides, again, here they are. You're welcome to download them. I'll make sure to link them. There's a few references about some things here. Thought being an ally was just doing something I post on Facebook. Sure, cardboard, sure. But feel free to go check out those linky links as we get ready to move into the next segment of our talk. Whoa, I just lost my thing. We're going to talk about cultural appropriation in JRPGs. So Cthulhu Oracle, Easily18, and Lana Kane are joining us for Twitch. So I'm going to get our guests lined up. So I'm going to do some ads while that's going, and we'll BRB with our panel. So let me pop the BRB screen and run some ads, and we'll be right back. Okay. Welcome everyone to the panel. We've got some friends here. We get the panelists listed. We've got Cthulhu Oracle 23, Easily 18, and the wonderful Lana Kane. There is a trigger warning here. We're going to be talking about Final Fantasy 16. So there's going to be some spoilers. If you are not wanting to have the spoilers, like, be warned now. But we're only going to get into like the first third of the game, so we're not too far into it that we're going to be watching. I got a couple clips that we're going to watch together, and then we'll talk about it and get into it. So some of the things that might come up: we might talk about racism. Who would have thought? We might talk about bullying, harassment, discrimination, and other mental health challenges. Viewer discretion advised. Please use the Find a Therapist command if you are looking to get some support. And we'll just kind of dive right into it. Make you big. There we go. So first question, just to kind of get us started, right? First questions. Who are you? Which Final Fantasy have you played most recently? Have you played 16? And tell us about a video game character that you admire who faces oppression, discrimination, or other issues of equity.
I'll go last.
Okay. So I am Easily.
Hi, Easily.
For some of you that may know me, some of you don't, I do speedrun Final Fantasy 9. But my most recent played is Final Fantasy 12, which was today, actually. I have played Final Fantasy 16. I have completed it. I have some very, very strong opinions about 16 in terms of both the gameplay, how it was handled, the bits we're going to discuss, and how it was ended, but we're not getting to there. I have a lot of characters through the Final Fantasy franchise in which I have resonated with and admire through the years. And in terms of one in which I truly do admire is from Final Fantasy 9, Shakara there. but it would be Vivi.
Mm.
Because with Vivi,
Wait,
keeping
one
it as-
second. So sorry. 1 second. Go ahead.
I was going to say keeping it as spoiler friendly as I can because I know Alana's playing it. With the way in which Vivi, the kind of character that Vivi is, goes through an awful lot of oppression through the game, especially with how their own essential race, in terms of what it would be, is used through the game, and therefore how it is seen. And the way in which Vivi evolves through the game is absolutely phenomenal to me, and could very easily have turned out to be an incredibly different character. So that is me.
That is an excellent character. Yeah, I also have not played 9, so I know a little bit because I watch your streams and I'm like, oh, this is a new part of the game I haven't seen before.
The running joke of every time you come into the stream, it's somewhere you haven't seen before.
Like, oh, this is new.
I deliberately kept it as light on spoilers, knowing you haven't played it and Lana is playing it.
I took my headphones off just to be safe. Hey, Lex.
Nice. All right. So Lana asked to go last. So Cthulhu, who are you? Which Final Fantasy did you play most recently? Have you played 16? And who's one of those characters you admired?
Oh, dang it.
It's my issues.
I'm sorry that you guys couldn't hear me.
It's my fault.
Stop, girl. You're good.
Okay.
From the top. Let it drop.
All right, from the top. I will. I shall do my best. So hi, I'm Cthulhu Oracle. I usually go by Cthulhu. I recently finished Final Fantasy 16 a week ago, and hi, big sis, and oh my god, I have emotions. I have very, very strong emotions and opinions about the entire story, and especially the ending. But I will not say anything. I'm trying to think of a character that hate to overstep, but aren't Cthulhu's pronouns she, they. Aw, thank you.
Oh, I will fix that.
Yeah,
One
right.
second.
Thank you.
Oh, what a
Yeah,
sweetie.
you're amazing. I can't think of a character that I identify with that like has been through the struggle. There's so many characters that has been through the struggle, but I don't know a character that I can like personally identify. I mean, I would say Jinx from League of Legends slightly. But can't remember. Question. I'm so
I think I'm losing her. Is anyone else losing her, or is that just me?
Are we losing you, Cthulhu? Internet go burr. I guess you're having the same internet I have.
The internet is hating on us. They don't want us to be great.
They oppressing us.
They are.
Should we come back to Cthulhu if needed?
Yeah, we can come back. All right.
Oh man, that means I have to go. Dang it. Do I go? Do I go?
Yeah.
I think so.
All right. What are the questions again? Who I am and what I gotta answer? What I gotta answer?
So who are you? What's the most recent Final Fantasy you played?
Okay.
Have you played 16? And tell us a little bit about a video game character you admire who has some experiences of oppression, equity, all the things.
Okay. Hi, my name is Lana Kane. I am the Djinn Queen of the Danger Zone. My pronouns are she, her. I am a variety streamer and a Just Chatting main. And I play a little bit of everything, but I think I just really like to get real with people. Last Final Fantasy that I've played, the one I'm currently playing is Final Fantasy IX, which has been pleasantly surprising. I went in being a complete hater, 1000%. Was like, Everybody, anyone who knows my mods, anyone who knows BBB, we'll just say that you already know where our stock is. And if no, it really wasn't him. That's kind of how we came together. As friends, just for clarification. As far as a RPG character that I felt has been has gone through something, maybe my answer will be interesting. I guess. So I don't know if I can think of one because I play games to find characters that help me feel elevated from my world because I deal with oppression in my IRL life. And so when I seek characters, when I play video games, when I immerse myself into that world, that is like the last thing I am looking for. So I can't even tell you an answer. And not to say that they are out there and they don't exist, but maybe I guess in my mind, I look at it as whatever this is, it is so outside of what I will actually have to deal with and what my reality in any form that I can't relate because or it just isn't as heavy maybe as maybe the stuff I've dealt with. Not to be dark, but just to be honest.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I think video games are my coping skill in a way. Just like D&D, right? Living in a fantasy world, gonna get in time to just be away and have a different kind of view of the world. Absolutely. All right, looks like Cthulhu is popping back.
I
There
love
she
that you look
is.
for games which are more up with the characters can uplift you. I think that's a really fantastic way of viewing the games you want to play.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome back, Cthulhu.
Welcome back.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
All right. So yes, I also have Spectrum. Oh god, Spectrum is so bad.
So if you wanted to finish Cthulhu, you were sharing about a character named Jinx, I think you said?
Okay, yeah. I kind of want to say Jinx from League of Legends because she was born into something that was completely out of her control, and a lot of people thought that she was quote unquote different, and that she didn't belong. And I kind of like how eventually she just said, "Screw this crap! I'm gonna do my own thing. I'm gonna walk my own path, and I'm just gonna like smash everything in my way." And it kind of reminded me of myself a little bit, just a little bit, because I was born into like a situation that was completely out of my control. I guess like for myself, I was born into a, how do I say this? It was like a line of addiction, and I was like born into like a product of it. And like despite my upbringing, I still kind of fought my way into a little bit of how I am today, and still continuing on the journey of breaking generational curses and whatnot.
Amen on that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Proud of you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and if you guys don't know me, I'm AffectorOfChange. This is my channel. Some people call me
This is
AOC.
house.
My pronouns are he, they. What Final Fantasy I played most recently? Final Fantasy V. I'm working on the Pixel remasters. They're really gorgeous and towards the end. Have I played 16? Yes, I streamed it from beginning to end, as you're going to see a couple clippies of that in a little bit. And a character, I guess I'm going to go with one of my classic favorites. I love Celis from Final Fantasy VI, even though she's not necessarily like a stereotypically oppressed individual. She is a general in a military that is out to just murder and destroy anyone who has the ability to use power and to use them for their own effort. No similar than some of these other conversations we've had so far today. And she, as a woman, right, has to like figure out her place in the world. And for me, that's part of, I think, why I loved Final Fantasy VI when I played, because you have Terra and Celis, these beautifully complicated, strong women that are the protagonists of this game. And I honestly wish you could see that again in Final Fantasy. But, someday, maybe 17, they'll figure that out. But it is an exceptional game for me, and Celis in particular stands out as somebody who's really fighting that good fight. That's me.
Nice. Also, I have not played 16, not by choice. I have watched complete playthroughs of it. I just don't have the system yet. We're working on it.
Completely understandable.
Going back to that chart of intersectionality, right? Like, there are a lot of reasons why people don't play some of these games.
Yeah, that's a big one.
The very big reason is the hardware.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The years it just gets expensive.
It just does.
Yeah.
It just does. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right, so the first clip I'm going to play is my playthrough. It's a shorter one. Welcome to Valisthea, just to kind of give the audience a view, so we all kind of have the same thing to agree with. So this is just like very beginning stuff. I did send these clips to you guys in the panel in the Discord if you want to watch that, if you don't want to watch it on the stream. But I am going to probably switch to this screen, so you guys are going to disappear so that folks can see the thing. I will just add a new video. This is fine. This is what we do when we stream, guys. This is how we do it. We just live go figure out what we need. Intro to Valisthea. That seems right. Is there sound, though? The branded soldier, bearers forced to fight for the nations that enslaved them, able to cast magic, looks like entirely sound, but I can't hear it. Placed on the front lines in battle or assigned highly dangerous scouting and assassination missions. The bastards are a unit of Imperial Army assassins tasked with taking the head of the Iron Kingdom's dominant, Warden of Ice, and vessel of the icon Shiva. All of its members, including its leader Tiamat, are bearers, branded men, pressed into servitude for their ability to wield magic.
All I want to do is help. Dominance like branded like you.
So, brand. The mark applied to the cheeks of bearers across Valisthea, identifying them as something other than human. Newborn babes are checked at birth. Those who are found to be bearers being branded and taken into the custody of the state. Rarely bearers evade this test, either because their parents hide them, the testers are lax in their duties, or their powers do not awaken until later. Most do not remain unbranded for long. A bearer? Person in the power to cast magic without a crystal. Men and women who are awoken as bearers are enslaved. Marked with a brand. So these are the people in the courtyard of our little castle. Like, using their magic to shape the topiaries or something. Ridiculous.
Save for our knack, dominance and bearers are no different from anyone else. The ability to use magic or summon great beasts should command respect, but instead has left us outcasts. Our kind are used and discarded like tools, yet we are men, so why must we die as less? No, I only wish to offer our kind a choice. A place where we can die on our own terms.
And yet here you are, stealing my branded.
Here. Bread and wine from the tavern.
Such plenty. Never in all my days.
Brother, this place is like a dream. We sat and no one shouted. We ate and more
was offered.
I know.
Alright, I'm just making sure that my voice goes over theirs.
You're free now. And the next time you're hungry, you need only ask to be fed.
I think I fixed it.
Thank you for everything. Thank you. Well, don't work him too
Spent a lot of money in the markades.
Well, that rather depends on you now, doesn't it? I'll see you all at sunset.
Oi!
You got the child at N64? Let's go, Mrs. Yeti.
Another
Get all my
fucking
oldies.
branded. Well, you're lucky you're with the dame.
You built different. Look at the little chocobos.
How many bearers suffer to keep your granaries full?
That's enough for today, branded.
So tired.
Go on, back to the pens with you. I need you fit for the morrow's harvest.
Oh my gosh, this is literal slavery. This is terrible.
That's enough dallying, you two.
Oh my god, look at all the stuff they're having to carry. Are they just trying to build, like, my antagonism for the Empire through this road? Oh my gosh. We need them. All right. So that's just a little clippy of some moments in the early start of Final Fantasy 16, where we have meeting Cid, whose job is to free the world of this terrible system. So basically, people in the world of Elisthea, some of them are born with the ability to use magic, and they're branded and put into chattel slavery and traded as a commodity. Much similar to IRL historical slavery, right?
Oh yeah.
Thoughts there as we get started, friends?
The developers very clearly wanted us to hate the world of Elisthea and how it's currently ran. They very clearly wanted us to side with the branded, and very clearly wanted it to reflect what is believed to be true slavery, and it is very, very horrible to see. And through the game, that section you were in with the fields was the bit that stuck out to me the most. And I remember I stopped during that, and I literally said, I fucking hate this place.
We'll get to that, Quetz. Don't you worry. We'll get to that, Quetz. The Cartport says the branding's also reminiscent of the Holocaust. Very true. Very true. Yeah, when Nazi Germany rose to power, they did the same thing with other human beings. Especially thinking again, intersectionality. If you were queer, they put a nice pink triangle on you. So not only were you oppressed by, the Nazis, but your fellow prisoners as well.
Double oppression.
Double oppression. Yeah, so I guess I wanted to just show that clip for anyone who hasn't played Final Fantasy 16 to just get a glimpse. This is the world that Square Enix created, right? This is the world that we're playing in, and it's not unusual. As someone who's played a few Final Fantasies, it's not unusual to have like an evil empire, and like that's kind of like the thing to do. But what I find really interesting is that Square decided, you know what we're going to do? We're going to make a game where we represent historical depictions of chattel slavery, one of the most evil, heinous things human beings have ever done to each other, in our game. And in the same breath, we're not going to have any black characters in this game either.
I want to touch on that if possible. Because 16 is the one that shouted about it the most, and it's horrendous that there isn't a single one that I remember. I don't remember a single person of color in that game. I looked through all of the previous Final Fantasies that stick in my head. 7, 1 character that sticks out. 8, 1 character that sticks out. 9, no characters that stick out. 10, no characters that stick out. 10-2, 1, sort of. 12, none that stick out.
Nah, shout out to Fran.
Okay, sort of. I'll say sort of there.
We do love Fran.
And then we'll go to 15. Do you remember any from 15?
Ow.
No.
This is my point. 16 is so heavily shouted out for it, but it is not an uncommon thing for Square Enix to do, which is horrendous. And it's something in this day and age that definitely needs to change. But 16...
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No.
But 16 on the subjects of slavery, not including it, I'm sure that was for a reason. They probably didn't want... I say this because they probably didn't want to upset more people, even though that probably made it worse.
I think Lana has something she'd like to say to the class.
Yeah. And Lana, please jump in.
I don't think that people are gonna like what I have to say.
It's okay. You're on my channel. Okay. They can't cancel you here.
You can cancel me at Lana Kane. I'm gonna say what I'm gonna say.
That's right.
I find it very on brand that another corporation or money source or something that at the end of the day is supposed to bring in income is taking something by not choice, by the way. It's not like we want to have to say this is where we come from or have to claim this, but taking something that Black people have gone through or have made or created or have been a part of, whether we like it or not, and made $1 off of it, made money off of it. And to avoid the problem of, uprising or people feeling uncomfortable, they just go, oh, we just won't put any Black people in it. And I think it just comes to the bigger problem that they try to sidestep. That is what every person who is not Black, and I'm going to say not Black, because we know that we know where we're at, to make them feel comfortable about whatever is happening and not have to worry about how our feelings are. If we aren't part of the equation in your mind, then we don't even have to look at you being even being a factor. In reality, you're just continuing to exclude us from spaces that we just are already in.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't make sense to me that a series that, as easily put, really hasn't always had great Black representation, yet we still found ourselves loving. I think there's so much overlay between a lot of Black nerds and RPGs, because the stories really do allow them to see themselves in a different place, in a different world that honestly a lot of places don't want us to be. So for a world that has magic and dragons and literal supernatural beings, to say not only that Black people are in the game because culturally or based on geographically where that world is, Black people didn't exist, which is not true, number one. You say that's your cop-out instead of the real answer, which is this game has slavery. And we decided to put slavery in the game instead, because instead of Black people, because us depicting slavery is going to make us more money because people are going to get really mad and we can use this as a ploy, as opposed to the actual real life feelings and anger and betrayal and shock and trauma that is going to affect every other Black and brown person that used to be a part of what we used to do. And I think that's bullshit. And it makes it really hard for me to want to play 16, 100%. And I love Final Fantasy 16. And I could go even further, but I'm going to let other people talk, because I find it very interesting that a lot of other people are willing to say, let's not play other games that are out there that make other, what's the word I'm looking for? Demographics feel uncomfortable or feel unheard or feel not seen.
Yeah, so I want to
legacy. Yeah,
I want to interject.
I'm not going to say a name, but I want to interject. Oh yeah, go ahead. Yeah, please. Yes. Please.
So part of where my thought of doing this particular panel came from is lovely Lana Kane and I had a sidebar conversation where we were talking about this game. And she brought up at that time the wizarding game that shall not be named. And I thought it was just a really interesting discussion that we could have, that you saw this public outcry that, wow, this person is a TERF. She supports awful rhetoric. We're going to make a cultural decision as Twitch community members that nope, like that a game, no thank you. And in fact, that wizarding game has become a dog whistle for white supremacists, right? Like the people who, would love for us to go back to the world of Alicia, right? Are the same people that looked at the success of that game and said, see, everyone agrees with us, right? And I don't mean to say every single person who played and or enjoyed or is still a Potterhead is a white supremacist. I don't want to make that call. But I want to say, like, where was the outcry for that, when it came to this appropriation of Black history for a white man savior's role? Where
in
was
a
it?
Japanese game.
The worst thing
Which blows my mind that even when it literally, Black people will mind their own entire fucking business. We aren't even in Japan. Well, this isn't even like literally has nothing to do with us. Yet somehow it always appeases to trying to please the white majority and the white man, as opposed to actually listening to those who are who were literally been affected by this. It blows my mind.
Hi, Kurt. We are talking about Final Fantasy 16 cultural appropriation. There's a lot of things that are going to be popping in our conversation. We might get heated. Please be mindful of them. Trigger warnings. Yeah. Easily sounded like you were about to pop in there.
Yeah.
What I truly don't understand with the developers, they didn't have to make anyone specific, black or white. They could have literally just scattered a mix of all sorts of different races, and the thing is, it is not just people of color that are oppressed in that game. Look at, there is another territory which is very synonymous with,
excuse me, guys,
essentially Egyptian culture or people of that descent, and there is not a single person who looks like they're from there. They might have the actors that sound a bit like it, but they don't look like it. And why? Why not just accept the fact that you are playing a game with different cultures and throw in different groups? Like, all you have to do is adjust their tone of the skin tones, there's some facial structures, some body structures, slight adjustments across the board, and you've got a nice mix. And no one is mad, no one is angry. They go, it's not just our race, it's not none of our race, it's not, it's all there. Everyone's there. It's inclusive.
The crazy part about it is that I don't even think anyone was thinking that until Final Fantasy 16 came out. I mean, because as a Black person, Chithula, you can agree to this. Very rarely are things made for us. We know this. If we decided to get angry and fight, no, go ahead. Yeah, you're good. I mean, like, as she is waiting, I'll say this, literally 90% of the things that we interact with and we live with as a black queer woman in America, a lot of this is not made for me. A lot of this is simply not made for me. Nobody wants for me to interact with a lot of the things. Nobody expects for me to interact with a lot of the things that I do. So I'm walking into any game that way. Easily, 100%. Like and it sucks to have to say that, but that is the truth. However, the fact that Final Fantasy 16 tried to save their ass, because that's what it was. It was a ploy to save their ass. And they told on themselves without even realizing that they did it, is that they put out an official statement where he incorrectly stated there are no Black people in this game because they want to appeal to the geographical factualness of the community, the world they're trying to rebuild. I'm so sorry.
They were trying to, what is it? Medieval? Like
medieval times. Because Black people,
medieval age?
The Middle Ages.
There we
correct. Go. Shocker alert, everyone. Guess what? Black people was around in the Middle Ages. We were there
for a long time.
We were there, as were many other different races and communities and types of people. And so to try and use that as your scapegoat before the game comes out, because we don't know any better. We didn't know what the story was. And then the story comes out and everybody's like, oh, that's why you did that. You didn't have the literature, the intelligence, clearly not the staff. That writing room and whoever's in there is all one type of demographic, which is very common in a lot of countries that aren't America, because that is not how other countries are built. And it showed. There's no excuses, because Square Enix is still a worldwide company. There really are not. And they know that they were wrong, which is why they made the statement that they did at the beginning to try and absolve them of any actual consequences. Now, let it be known, not all Black people agree with me. A lot of Black people kind of take the approach that I already did, which everything that we do is already kind of like this. So what's the big deal? Me personally, though, I'm bothered by it. It made me upset. Final Fantasy VIII is like the whole reason I started even playing what I'm doing right now, being interested in the things that I'm in now, into the world that I am right now, that changed my life. And to have the creator of that essentially sidestep a real issue, but to use my actual family's trauma and grief to make him some fucking money and get Game of the Year. Bullshit. Seriously.
Yeah. Definitely what's the word for it? Definitely like divulging in with what Lana was saying. Like for me personally, I grew up on Final Fantasy. I grew up on Legend of Zelda. I grew up on Kingdom Hearts. I grew up on so many beloved games that are basically we were included in a lot of beloved games, a lot of, very popular games and whatnot. And it was funny because I was talking about this with another friend about the whole Final Fantasy 16 thing about slavery. And we were both discussing about it, and they were like, you know what, at the same time, well, I mean, it's not even at the same time. Like, it's like we have to like talk what we know. We do realize that when it comes to other countries around the world, there is always going to be a demographic that they are going to want to appease to, because that's where their money goes. That's how they make the big bucks and whatnot. They have a beloved story. Every Final Fantasy story is eventually turns into a beloved one. But at the same time, they have to look at their demographic. And there were, in my opinion, they're probably like, what happens if we were to go that route? Would we be called woke? Would we lose sales? Would this be detrimental to our company? And for me, it's like in my personal opinion, I feel that it's kind of, it's like it's an informative thing that goes off, because when it comes to slavery, about African Americans or Africans of Africa itself or whatnot, it gets dismissed. It gets seen as woke. It's like, oh, this happened so long ago. You guys need to get over it and whatnot. But yet we are able to celebrate other different genres of different countries and continents of slaveries. And we know that we can respect it, we can, acknowledge it, we can, honor the good, and I mean, actually there was no good to slavery at all. We can honor exactly what would happen, but they don't really get the whole, oh, it happened so long ago, oh, that's just being woke, oh, that's just a completely different demographic. It's gonna, because they're probably don't want to turn the whole thing into a political thing. I mean, look what's happening like in our own states right now. We have states that are saying, oh, well, we should probably talk about the benefits of slavery, and I'm just like, what?
Legitimately, yeah.
I'm like, terrifying. Right? Because it's like what it's like, because that's where it ties into, like, with Final Fantasy, with Square Enix in Japan, and then America, because I mean, let's be honest here, a lot of different countries pay attention to America. I mean, they pay attention to what's going on. They're paying attention to what they're doing. Half of them, aspire to still have that Western thing going on, and oh god, like for example, what does it say? As an Asian person, I have trying to influence these. I was just about to say, okay, Kiwi, thank you. Okay,
Kiwi's
so
speaking on it, she is.
Okay, so here's another thing that, like, there's a lot of that I want to talk about that I'm kind of scared to, because it's like I don't want to like start something, but
go
like,
ahead, I'll back you up. Go ahead.
We got
you. My biggest thing when it comes to like Final Fantasy and like the I guess the lack of representation is even within itself. There's not that many dark skinned Asian people, because it's like you have Japan, and it's like you have Japan, because it's like you have Japan and Korea, and then they compare themselves against like the Philippines and whatnot. And a lot of people, at least since I'm from California, people will say that the Philippines is like the Hispanic version of Asian people, which it's like a completely different demographic. And it's like, if companies are trying to say that they are allies, and if companies are trying to say that we see you, we understand you, and it's like you are speaking of it, but through your actions, it's very lacking. It's very, very lacking to me. And that's kind of the thing that, was kind of just like, burning inside of me. It's like, hey, I love this franchise for many, many years. At the same time, it would be nice to see, darker skin characters, even a black character, if that. Because let's put it this way: I'm go by Cthulhu Oracle. Unfortunately, Lovecraft wasn't really a nice.
Can you tell them about that? Can you really tell them about that, please?
About
Cthulhu?
the cat?
Can I just say? Okay. We really gonna get into this? All right, here we go.
We gonna get into it. Let's go.
We gonna get into this. I want people to hear this. Okay. I'm telling you, if you are choosing, you really have to pick and choose your battles. If you want to stand for one thing, I really need y'all to do your research. Everyone talks about how H.P. Lovecraft is amazing. He's a genius. There was like 3-4 years where everything was H.P. Lovecraft. Admittedly, a very good artist. I'll give him that. His cat's name was N-word Lover. He was an openly racist man.
I didn't find that out until like years later after like I dubbed the name Cthulhu, and I'm just like, oh, great.
But that's not your fault, and that's what I'm talking about.
Know.
Everybody wants to say, like, oh well, I don't understand what the big deal is. I don't understand what the big deal is. Everything that you touch, sadly, in our American culture is probably rooted in racism. And that is a true, sad fact. You really do have to pick your battles. I'm not telling you shouldn't play Final Fantasy 16. I probably would play it. I think it's actually a really good game. I'm not telling you not to like Lovecraft. I think for me is that like I love Final Fantasy as a whole. It is something that I grew up with. And this was like before like having the full on knowledge of, hey, absolutely,
how come I don't see people who look like me that's in this video game? Because I myself, I was already used to it, from like from Pokemon and Kingdom Hearts and so many other video games that all of us grew up and loved. We just took it out as normalcy, and I didn't really thought about it back then growing up as, how come I don't see anybody that looks like me in any of these games? I was just like, oh, cool, this game looks pretty cool. I like this story and whatnot. Yeah. But then as I got older and saw things that I relate to, I was like, oh, okay, maybe, okay. And then I was like, oh, okay. So, I was like, what, it's kind of funny. There's a lot of stuff that I relate to. And then the more that I think about it, it's like, what, now that I think about it, since there's other people that relates to this kind of stuff, why is it only shown through one popular demographic type of human being that's being displayed all over the world if all of us from different backgrounds, from different races are also going through the same thing, which was why I was kind of confused as to why there was only like one solid race in the Final Fantasy 16 slavery thing. Even in that town that was like in the middle of the desert, I thought that was kind of, but like I said, I felt like they probably did it because they probably would get called woke and all this other stuff, and that, things would end up being political and whatnot, which is like, what, I understand that they're trying to save their ass. At the same time, if you're going to be calling yourself an ally, if you're going to be saying, bringing up these kind of, things that actually happen in real life, you have to, be able to show it through the many various different eyes. And I noticed that our eyes are often told to be shut, to sit down, to go to the back, because people are tired of hearing of the same old slavery story of African Americans, but yet they have the patience for other races of slavery.
100%.
I also want to interject as well. They very clearly knew what they were doing in the fact that if they were trying to be inclusive, which in one way they were, because look at the fact that they had a very clear gay couple.
Dion!
That's what I was gonna get into next. Yeah.
You can be gay, but you can't be black. You're black, but you can't be both. You can't be
very
both.
clearly going.
They were very on the open with Dion. That is very true.
But they depicted it as hidden because of the cultural appropriation of where they depicted the game to be in time. But they still put a couple in there. They still added that, but yet they wouldn't acknowledge race.
You want to know why?
Bizarre.
I can tell you why. It's called the pink dollar. It's called the pink dollar. I'm not even being over dramatic right now, because everyone can relate to in some shape or way, whether they say it out loud, to being gay, because gay is not a skin color. But no one, and a lot more people, are afraid to relate or try to connect to somebody who is black, especially if you're white, because it is historically known that white and black have bad history from our past. That's why. That's a huge reason why people are a lot more comfortable saying, "Oh yeah, well, I could totally be into like a girl if they're a girl." Like, yeah, like
And
things
another
happen.
thing, and another thing between those two is that, like, I mean, unfortunately, in my personal opinion, I don't care what sexuality or gender that you are. You freaking, let your
Same.
flag fly. Let your flag fly. But I notice is that in certain situations that people have to code switch their gender and who they love, and they use that as a safety net and whatnot, which they shouldn't really have to do because, I mean, hello, you're a human being. You need to, people should be able to live. I can't, I can't switch or code switch the fact that I'm African American.
It's not going anywhere,
Because it's
guys.
like, for a lot, because I mean, people shouldn't have to code switch in general, but in the world of the media, I guess, being attracted to whatever you were attracted to can be code switch, but I can't really code switch being an African American because people see me face to face.
Yep.
Which is
So-
probably why they accepted the fact of having a gay couple more than an African American person, because it's like,
Yes.
you could be, because in the world of the media they can be subtle with it, but as for African Americans, you can't really be subtle. We're just there. At
It's
that
not
point.
even just a gay couple. It is royalty with someone who essentially is nowhere near their status either. They've added all of this inclusion and lost a huge one. It's
Let's see, I disagree because my best friend and brother is black and I am white. Never had an issue with that. Want to know why? Because it comes from family values. I do not discriminate based on color, gender, sexuality, religion. But keep in mind, I am from Brazil and was raised in a high society, so that may be a very strong variable. My point is, people teach their kids not to.
Yeah,
My
that's
point is,
100% the variable. Yeah, that's why.
yeah,
very
my point
dependent
is, if people
on
teach their
where
kids to
you
not
are.
discriminate, this would not be a problem. Exactly, but
It's your
we
variable.
can. Let's put it this way:
1,000%
we
allows
can
you
give
to that.
advice. Yeah, we can give advice till the cows come home. It's going to be up to that person to eventually listen.
Yeah.
So one of the points I thought would be interesting for us to think about is, since we're talking about our boy Dion, beautiful, beautiful Dion, the caked up prince.
God.
He's gorgeous,
Justice
right?
for Dion.
So as much as I personally simp for that man, because I think he's beautiful, I
He's
also
gorgeous.
have to reconcile the fact that this is the prince of a regime that uses chattel slavery. And in fact, he's happy to continue things going as they are. He's not challenging power because he thinks slavery's wrong.
He's challenging power simply because he's against mass murder. That's his only real. There's nothing to do with slavery in his eyes.
That's true.
He's still a villain, in my opinion.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Probably the most popular villain. The real villains are the ones who will smile in your face and tell you I'm sorry and still do exactly what they're doing to you while looking you in the eye, because it inconveniences them to do what's right.
I'm split on Dion because I want justice for Dion because his whole family situation was messed up. But like prior to that, that was kind of like a little bit of like, oh, did you see that? Did you get that piece? Did you get? It was like, holy fuck. Like, oh my god. Let's see, Brazil is racist as heck too. 80% are racist against black or gays in the place I was born, unfortunately. So as a kid, I did what any kid would do and resort to violence.
Hi, friend.
Hi, friend.
Well, let's put it this way. I am grateful and thankful for the fact that, no matter where we are, there is a sense of unity and whatnot. I mean, where there is, discrimination and slavery, there is, in different areas and different forms, a type of unity, a type of, a brand of people that say, hey, we don't agree with this. We still, look, no matter what race or who you love, we still see you as a person. But at the same time, since we are people of all over the world, there's so many different brands of stories to tell.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be, nice and wonderful to see that through the game.
Yeah, I think a thought that I have is that I don't think as human beings we are necessarily born to hate other human beings. I think it is something that we learn that as we are exposed to our peers, our family members, our experiences, that stuff kind of comes out. And so if we think about that as being the fact, then why not have inclusive representation? Why skip that right over and reinforce these cultural stereotypes and benefit financially from the stories of other humans? To me, I think Square Enix could have really done something here. Even if they didn't put black characters in the game, in my opinion, if they had let us be exposed. So I have another clip. I don't think we're going to show it because it's long and it's traumatizing. I will throw that out there. I'll give you the highlights. There are two quests as you're wandering out into the northern areas that you saw towards the end of the clip I just showed. One of those clips, you go and this gentleman's like, the slave I paid for, basically. About time you showed up. And he's like, you need to go help my son. He's getting attacked. Okay. So I go, I find the kid. He's getting attacked by a wolf. I get rid of the wolf. The kid yells at me. He's mad. I'm like, what do you mean you're mad? What's going on here? Well, come to find out, this is a game. This is a game him and his dad played, and there are two dead bearers right there next to the wolf. They convince bearers he's in distress. They go to try to rescue him so that they can be murdered. And there are multiple bodies that you find that have been fallen victim to this scheme in this game. I felt instant disgust when I saw that scene. To follow it up, go ahead, Leslie.
That is the first time in a game in recent times where I have been angry at the game.
Yeah.
I was angry at those two quests.
So to follow it up, the second quest, to give you the highlights there, is you get that experience. Then you go and meet this little girl, and she's like, can you help me find my Chloe? She has white hair. And you're like, okay, we'll go find your Chloe. I thought it was a chocobo. I thought it was a wholesome quest. I was very
like a doll.
I was very wrong. So you go and you talk to somebody about it, and she gives you an attitude because you're a bearer, of course, which whatever. And then she's like, oh, maybe go look over there by the lighthouse or the windmill. So you go over, you find a barking dog, does not have white hair. So you're like, okay, that's weird. And then you realize what the dog's barking at. The dog is barking at a dead human. The dog is barking at a body of a person who has fallen behind. So something that wasn't covered in that first clip, in the world of Valencia, these individuals who have the innate, wonderful gift of casting magic, when it's abused, when they use it too much, they fall victim to the bear's curse, which causes them to paralyze, extreme pain, and to die as a stone. And so what we learn from this quest is that this girl is given another human being as a pet, a human being that's already been used and abused so much so that she's got this curse going on. That's why her hair is white and she's dying in pain. And they gift this to the child as if it's a pet.
When I did this quest, I actually passed by this body, okay, and I saw it as it was a white frozen thing. I thought it was a doll, like a mannequin or something like that, and I literally said, oh, this is weird here, and I carried on, and I got to the quest, and I went straight back to the body when I realized what it was, and it was disgusting. And I remember because Rated Shupert had already got to that point, and she whispered one of the other mods, and she said, did easily just discover Chloe and not realize? And it was disgusting the way in which she spoke about it was a possession, a pet, a toy.
Yeah.
This person was not a person to her.
True.
And
I think that's what also got to me as well, is the fact that the children and how they reacted to them, what they thought of them, what they were taught to think and do and treat them was one of the things that I was angry with. That was one of the things that kind of blew my mind. But at the same time, these are actual things that have happened in our past. I don't know the name of the other quest that we had. What was the name of the quest where it was the dad and that little boy?
Oh, I wrote them down, but I can't remember. Something about saying
I can't
wolf?
remember, but you know what I'm talking about. That
Yeah.
and the Chloe one were the ones that kind of irked me a bit.
The name of the quest for Chloe was Playthings, I do believe.
Yeah, and then the one with the dad and the boy. That was.
Yeah, I'm literally
That was really
thinking
messed
about those quests. So this was a while ago. This was like a month ago, maybe, that I played 16. I can still feel that pit in my stomach disgust feeling when I played the game. And I had to like pause stream and I had to process what I just observed, what I just witnessed. And so I guess I'm just reinforcing an earlier point that we talked about, is that how can you have a game that really gets into the deep pit of your stomach by depicting such awfulness and yet take no accountability for the people whose story this actually is?
And
because it's tradition. Because it's tradition.
I'm gonna respond to this.
So
I'm gonna respond to this really quickly because my boss just pinged me. I'm so sorry. I work from home. That's probably what makes me the most sick. That is 100% what makes me the most sick. I think that it really bothers me that they specifically chose to say not Black people, because if we want to talk about someone who has a very vivid, very known, very talked about history with slavery, it isn't just Black people, it's specifically Black Americans. And in the era of another Asian culture, K-pop, really benefiting off of the good of Black people, which is our music and our R&B. And that's not me to be like, ill, F them, because I enjoy some K-pop, but I also know what K-pop derives from. I know what a lot of music derives from, and it's us. So as another culture is stealing from us, and I'm only saying stealing because only half of, I feel like a lot of K-pop stands and companies are willing to admit that. And it's getting better because people are holding them accountable. It hurts even more to see you're not only going to take our good things that we're doing, you're going to take our trauma and make $1. We're not even in the same half of the continent as you. And you're not even putting us in the rooms that you're making these decisions in. That's just absolutely despicable. That's, I think, what bothers me most. I wouldn't even care if Black people were in a game if the whole slavery thing was happening and they actually were, I don't know, responsible enough to let everybody know, hey, these are the depictions of what we're dealing with. This is what's happening. This is where this comes from. This is why it's wrong. This is why we did this. Whether you put that at the end of the game or the beginning of the game, whatever, that conversation needed to be made. And I think that without even race being tied into anything, slavery is an extremely awful, terrible, inhumane process. You are literally in control of another person's well-being. It is so prehistoric and so disgusting. Why wouldn't you put that disclaimer in there? Why wouldn't you have that conversation? Why wouldn't you want to educate people and not trigger them? It's an awful part, an embarrassing part of our history that anyone in the world can understand, that from any continent can understand. And it's just made 10 times worse that the fact that they realize that, oh shit, Black people, they really not going to like this. Oh, we don't have any Black people here. Should we go get some? No, let's not get any. Let's just pretend like let's just say they don't come. Don't come. That doesn't solve anything. Like Easley said, it makes it 10 times worse. It makes us 10 times worse. If we refuse to face the reality of what history has happened, we're doomed to repeat it. People say it all the time.
Yeah,
and maybe
because like at the same time when it comes to African American culture, they love our rhythm, but they hate our blues.
Everybody wants to be Black, but nobody wants to be Black. Everybody wants to be Black, but nobody wants to be Black. They want our lips. They want our hair. They want our style. They want our figures. They want our lyrics. They want our food. They want our dresses. They want our privilege. You know, all these things that people want to pick from Black people, but never, they want to pick us apart, but no one actually wants to do anything for us. It truly infuriates me. And then when we make the decision to actually say something about it, to actually stand up about it, because some of us have the ability to do that intellectually and, you know, calmly, thank God. But I do not fault my brothers and sisters who are just angry and reacting, because my God, who the fuck wouldn't? If people are going to riot after a sports game because their team lost, you want to be mad when a riot about things that have to do with my rights? Get the fuck out of here. And that's me taking it a little bit further, but that's what these things do. That's what moments like this push people to think of. Another thing to add to the list of against Black people, against brown people, against gay people, against so many different
and
it's
yeah, and that's like
infuriating.
another thing, because it's like I notice is that, like, you know, we recognize other different slaveries from other different races, but sometimes I wonder why. It's like, okay, we know about the Holocaust, we know about what happened in
period
Hawaii and in Russia and so many other places, but I noticed that when we talk about slavery when it comes to African Americans, it's an eggshell factor.
Mm-hmm.
It's people are on eggshells. Like, we're comfortable about talking about, you know, the struggles of other different races comfortably. We're you know, we're willing to listen, to sit down, to respect, to honor, and to, you know, divulge. But I notice when it comes to African Americans dealing with slavery, it's greeted in a completely different light versus a person who was, you know, part of, you know, what happened, you know, with what is it, like, what was it called? It was Farewell to Manzanar. I remember reading that, you know. So it's like, I kind of wonder. I would like to know, you know, why is it like that? People are more gracious about other people's races when it comes to slavery more than African Americans. Even though people are claiming to be allies, they're claiming to say that they understand. They're claiming to say that we are opening the forum to anybody and everybody, regardless of who you are. But yet they won't. But they didn't, you know, include African American or at least dark skinned people in Final Fantasy 16. Is kind of confusing, because it's like you're saying that you're open-minded, or you're open-minded about this. You're saying that you hear, you know, your fans, you hear what's going on with the world, but at the same time, what is the thin line of you hearing and appeasing to somebody else for the sake of your brand? Like, what is the brand? I mean, evidently there's going to be money involved, but like, what is the heart of that brand? What is the goal of that brand? You're saying so many different things that you want us to believe about that brand, but, you know, as we've seen, you know, it's like, what are you guys actually going to do about it?
You know, it's interesting in my research to kind of think about some thoughts about what we could talk about in this portion. I found a video of a professor. Actually, I think it was 3 professors, and they were some from a university. I can't remember now the name of it, but basically it's an anti-terrorism initiative, right? So these are scholars who are helping like figure out like what's going on with domestic terror and what can we do about it? How can we track these things? What are the trends? What's going on? And I learned that there is a lot of appropriation going on in white supremacy groups where they take on elements of Norse paganism, where they take on elements of all sorts of other cultures' histories and Norse mythology and all of these things. And I just, to me, I think we need to really recognize the power that cultural appropriation has and how much it can contribute to harm. As we think about Final Fantasy and the huge sway that they have as a brand, as a company. I love Final Fantasy. I think everybody who's here in this panel, many of us who have come
Final
to this
Fantasy
talk.
is like literally my childhood.
Yeah.
And I like how
I'm in a man squall. That's my man.
But I personally, I feel hurt. I feel hurt by having this
said.
experience without any proper follow-up, any conversation. I feel hurt by Square Enix, in a sense, for producing this game.
And you know what? I just realized there's another game, and I'm glad that you mentioned Norse, because remember, not too long ago there was a certain little Norse game with a certain little character that came out that everybody was freaking out over.
Oh God, so upset about her.
Angrboda.
So mad
It's
about that girl
funny
being
because
black.
it's like I'm
Oh
surprised that
my
God of War
God.
actually went that route and actually included, and they still won Game of the Year, didn't they? They won a lot of awards.
It's a good
But
game, man.
yeah, I just realized that they had a whole to do about Angrboda, and yet the game still went well.
Yeah.
So interesting.
So, I guess let me ask you all a question, right? So we clearly have feelings. We all have our opinions about the world, and we can only do what we can do in our own little sphere of influence. But if there was something that you could say to the folks who come to watch you play Final Fantasy to address issues of discrimination, oppression, anything like that we're talking about in this conversation that may happen to come up in a game or content that you're streaming, what's a thing that you might want to do to try to address it more ethically than Square Enix has here?
I mean, if I ever choose to play this game on stream, we're going to talk about it beforehand, because that is a huge reason why I have not played it. And I think that there's a lot of people, I've talked with a lot of people about this, and a lot of people have said, who aren't Black, have said, I feel like I can't comment on this because I've heard other Black people essentially be like, well, I don't, like, everyone's trying to be a savior, like, what's the big deal? And I think there's two things to that. One, just like whatever race you might be, don't all think the same. We don't all think the same either. We are allowed to have differences of opinions. I think we also have to remember that a lot of that is very nuanced in the fact that, once again, nothing is ever made for Black people. This is our life. This is our world. This country was literally built in our backs, and they still want to put us back under. Like, that's our everyday reality. If that's too much to handle, imagine handling that every day. That's the reality of it. That's the truth. I can never run away from that. I've tried, believe me. And so some Black people are going to be like, I don't want to think about that. I don't want to have to enter in that. It's not that big of a deal of it. And that's fine. I think that is allowed. We have enough on our plate. We have enough.
I was just about to say that. We really do.
If we don't want to engage, then we don't need to engage.
What was it fixed?
There we go. Now you can hear easily and Lana. Yeah, I'm hearing us a little bit on her PC. Yep, they can hear you.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
We streaming, guys. Look at us go. We're live on the internet. I hope Cthulhu can join us.
Look at us. Doing it. We're doing it,
Everything
guys.
all changed.
Everything's all changed.
I have a special guest with me.
Hi, puppy. It was kind of funny, though. While my internet was being throttled, I was listening a little bit to the conversation in the back room. Just compliments.
You heard me getting deep.
Compliments, love, getting deep. The whole gambit. That's what we do here on this purple app.
Yeah, we just got.
This is true.
That's all.
Yeah. I don't even know what question to ask at this point. Do I have any questions from the audience? Let me go check. We have about 10 minutes before Iceman Prime goes live for his slot in the raid train. So I'm going to go check my Google Drive to see if anybody's left us any questions for the panel. And if you guys want to put them in there, feel free to pop that down. I guess I can also ask easily Lana. Do you guys have any questions you want to ask our panel on our topic today?
Does any of what has come up remotely put you off playing, Lana?
Yes. Actually, I'll be honest with you. I think more than anything, I want to play more. I fully believe that if you want to, if you want to have any type of different perspective, diverse perspective, just a different perspective in general for anything, you need to know both sides. You need to know what it is that you're fully, arguing about, upset about. And maybe not all the time per se, but I do think it arms you better. So I do want to play the game. Like I said, I've watched the playthrough of it, like I think up to like 65, 70%. It was tough to watch the entire thing because it just really put a bad taste in my mouth. And you know what I will say though? Shout out to Final Fantasy doing that, because that's a big part of why I had started playing different games. That's why I've been playing Metal Gear. That's why I've been playing Fortnite. That's why I've been playing Phasmophobia, Demonologist, challenging myself just to different brands of gaming, because I'm kind of like, well, Square Enix, I'm kind of not feeling your vibe. Let me go find some games that not only are fun, but like want to include me and that see an issue with not including me. So, yeah, I mean, I guess there's a silver lining to everything. And hopefully Final Fantasy learns from this. I'm still going to play Final Fantasy 14 though. I sure am. I'm hitting those digital streets with Affector very soon. I sure am.
That critically acclaimed MMORPG that we all know so much about, right, Easley?
That's right.
Absolutely. Fun fact, I have 2 level 60 characters.
Ooh. Okay.
I do have another question.
Go ahead.
This one's for Affector, actually.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, so Affector, you, as far as I'm concerned, are one of the most aware individuals on Twitch in terms of how you may affect others and how they may affect you and other people. In terms of how 16 has been brought out and been played multiple ways, and the experiences you've seen across various streamers, do you believe that
Discord
according to the stream
doing the thing? I see it. I hear you guys.
Oh, and
hello.
Wait, if we can be heard, that's
you can be heard. You know what? It is half the battle. They can hear you.
We've been heard.
They can hear you. Get that question out easily before we raid out.
Okay.
Papa, can you hear me?
So, do you feel that with the initial release and reactions of the players, that Square Enix will look to change the way in which they view cultural appropriation within their games, or do you believe that they will still turn a blind eye? And if so, do you think that people will backlash?
I think answer 1, no. I don't think after this game they're going to change. Which is not a thing I want to believe, but that is precisely, I think, what I would say I believe. I don't think it's going to change. A. B, I think part of the reason it's not changing is because for a lot of people, having conversations about themes like race and depictions of it are very uncomfortable.
Agreed.
It might be the spooky games I was playing earlier and my internet just capsizing, but I think like my heart for most of this presentation has been elevated in our conversation. And what's interesting about that observation is Easley, Cthulhu, Lana, you are 3 people that I feel safe with, that I feel comfortable with, that I feel like we are community in a sense, right? Like we get each other. And yet that but in my heart is still there because this topic is so hard. It is so hard to have. And
absolutely,
if we're willing to have that conversation, right? Like I think that's a step in the right direction. But honestly, no, I don't think that they're going to make a change at this venture. However, I guess the advice I would give for all of us is we need to continue to have these conversations. We need to have these talks that are uncomfortable, and we need to give a voice to what's not being talked about. I mean, I've heard people talk about 16 in all sorts of fashion, and this conversation outside of private one-on-one moments with some folks is the first time I'm hearing it.
Yes.
Yep.
And I think that says a lot about what we need to work on as fans of this franchise and in human beings of this world is we need to get more comfortable with getting uncomfy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So to both of you, what do you think would have to change in order for Square Enix as a company, or even other companies, because it's not the only company that does this, what do you think would need to change for them to start being more inclusive of both cultures and sexuality?
I mean, I'll say this for both Square Enix and Twitch space. The Final Fantasy community that I'm in right now, everyone's pretty great. We have our ups and downs, don't get me wrong. But there are definitely, and I think that y'all probably will go, damn, she's right. There's probably maybe 5 Black girls, and I'm talking about Black girls, 5 Black girls that you can name in our community, off the top of your head, myself included, and maybe probably 5 Black men.
I think 4.
Yeah, 4. There's 4. Yep. And that's high representation, which is a scary fact. I think
We're back now.
We're back.
So Lana, you were talking about that the representation, right, of who you see playing these games, who you see talking about these games is not very representative of everybody.
Mm-mm. And I look at Ray Train events, and I usually am, if it's not me or Garnet or me, Garnet, and E Bunny B or Spitzy. These are like the only 4 that I see consistently. I met Cthulhu through an event that Shoop did. And now I'm starting to see her a little bit more in the events that are happening. But a lot of the times I hear repeatedly, and this is a big reason, as you know, why I did my Juneteenth Ray Train, because I would say probably out of the 35 people that I asked to be in that event, only 5 to 10 people had ever been in a Ray Train event before. And a lot of those people that had not been in an event like that were partner streamers who got big numbers, streamers who a lot of people knew. But once again, no one reached out to them out of fear, out of hesitation. I don't really know. But I think that if that's a problem, if you want our money, if you want our advice, if you want our stories, if you want our history, then you need to invite us to the party.
Well said.
I think
so. Just food for thought.
We're just about like at the time where we need to head over to the next station, and hopefully we can raid before my internet dies. My quick response here to that question easily of what can Square Enix do? I think Square Enix needs to do the work. I think their employees need to do the work. Their producers need to do the work. The fans, we all need to do our work, because that's what this is. When we're upending systems like racism, there's no one person that's going to do that. This is an individual's work. I think you, me, and every single person, this is work we need to do personally. And if that is something that can be achieved, that's where we can see progress.
Agree.
And
absolutely.
I guess the other quick thing I would say is hire some damn consultants. Pay some people who can help you figure out these decisions as a multi-billion-dollar brand. Please.
Where's your DEI company? Or
where is it? Who are they? They didn't do their job. For real. All right, guys. So thank you for joining us for this beautiful event for the Raid Train. I am so sorry for these hiccups. My internet service provider is going to get a talking to. I have a thing. So we're going to head over to a good buddy, Iceman Prime. He is fantastic. He is fabulous. Thank you, Lana. Thank you, Cthulhu. I don't know if you're still here with us, because I literally can't see anything on and I gotta get
Thank you for having us, Affector. Seriously, this was
thank
amazing.
you so much.
Yes,
this was fantastic.
Thank you so much for including all of us for this. You could have picked any people, and you chose us.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah,
thank you for listening to what we have to say to Affector, Easily, and Cthulhu. Yeah, seriously, this was great.
Yes, thank you for doing the train. Oh, I'm very honored to be here. Shout out to Aria's here. I'm going to give her another big PP shout out because she's amazing. She's fantastic. I love her energy. I love everything about Ari. She's great. And we'll do a regular shouty for where we're going. We're going to go see Iceman Prime. So let me get that raid started. I think I have this command set up, don't I? I do.
Yes, you do.
Haha, I have somewhat prepared.
Yes.
So feel free to copy that message right there. Mental health matters, or write whatever you think appeals to your brain at the moment. Let's get that raid started, get things over before my internet crashes. Thank you again, everyone. Thank you, Ari. This is just great. I look forward to continuing to follow along the train, hear what other people have to say, and to catch some of them VODs of those things I missed. Unfortunately, with the raid train, it's 24/7.
Yes.
Can't see them all in a reasonable way without hurting ourselves.
It was such an early time for me.
Yeah, you were really early.
Oh, there you are.
There you are. Hi, Cthulhu.
Sorry, Spectrum.
Listen, I get it. I get it. One of the things I like to say as I sign off, remember that each and every single human being has the capability of healing, and you have the power to create those conditions for yourselves. Thank you so much for all your cheers, all your donations, and mostly just your ears for listening to us ramble on and talk about some really uncomfy stuff. Yeah. Anything else you want to say in the last 5 seconds, Cthulhu, before we end?
Thank you guys for having me. I love you guys as much as you guys are amazing.
I love you. Follow the link above. If you just got here, go to the link above. Go to the link above. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go.
Let's go. Hi, Era.
Hi, Era.
See ya.
Oh my goodness.